The number on my phone showed my sister's name, Jessica. I hadn't heard from her in 3 months, which wasn't unusual. She was busy. She always said. Too busy for Dad, anyway. Michael. Her voice came through sharp and professional the way she talked to clients at her real estate firm. Dad signed the restaurant over to me last night. Everything. The whole chain. I'm meeting with the lawyers Friday to finalize the transfer. Thought you should know before you hear it from someone else. My hand tightened around the phone. 23 years. That's how long I'd been working at Marino's, the restaurant my father built from nothing in San Diego back in 1987. I'd started as a dishwasher at 16. Worked my way through every position. Manager for the last decade. Jessica had worked there exactly 1 summer. She was 19, complained about the smell of garlic on her clothes, and quit to pursue her real estate license. When did this happen? I asked carefully. Last night. I brought the papers over. Dad was having one of his good days. You know how it is with the Parkinsons. Everything's legal, Michael. Don't even think about contesting it. I should mention something. My father, Frank Marino, 78 years old, had been diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's disease 18 months ago. The tremors were mild. His mind was sharp as ever. But Jessica had started visiting more often after the diagnosis, which I'd found curious at the time. I'll need to see those papers, I said. You'll see them when the lawyers file them. I'm not required to show you anything. But hey, I'm not heartless. You can keep your manager job if you want. I'll need someone who knows how the kitchens run. She hung up before I could respond. I stood in my father's kitchen. He was sitting at the table reading the morning paper like he did every day at 8 a.m. His coffee was still steaming. The tremor in his right hand was barely noticeable as he turned the page. Dad, I said quietly. He looked up. His eyes were clear-focused. You heard from your sister. She says you signed the restaurants over to her. My father took a slow sip of his coffee. What did you say to her? I said I needed to see the papers. He nodded, folded his newspaper carefully, and set it aside. Good. That's what I expected you to say. Something in his tone made me pause. There was no confusion in his voice, no regret, no sadness. Dad, what's going on? Sit down, Michael. I sat. How many times have you been here in the last 18 months? He asked. 3 times a week, sometimes 4 if you needed, and your sister. I thought about it. She came by more after your diagnosis, maybe twice a month. 17 times in 18 months, he said precisely. I kept count. And do you know what happened during those 17 visits? I shook my head. She brought papers, every single time. Different papers, new legal documents, proposals for selling the business, suggestions about putting me in assisted living so I'd be more comfortable, plans for dividing the assets now instead of waiting for me to die. The word hung in the air between us, The first time I thought she was just being practical. Your sister's always been practical. But the second time, the third time, I started paying attention. He reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out a manila folder, thick with documents. This is everything she brought. Power of attorney forms, advanced directives naming her as my healthcare proxy, a quitclaim deed for my house, a contract to sell Marinos to a restaurant group she's connected with. She had it all planned out, Michael. My chest felt tight. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to know something. He met my eyes. I needed to know which of my children loved me and which one loved my money. The words hit harder than any accusation. Not angry, just sad, infinitely sad. So I played along, he continued. I started acting more confused than I was. I'd forget little things in front of her. Names, dates, what day it was. I'd ask her to explain things twice. I let her think the Parkinson's was affecting my mind. But it's not. No. My neurologist says my cognitive function is perfect. The disease is physical, not mental. But your sister doesn't know that. She sees an old man with a tremor and assumes he's losing it. He pulled out another paper from the folder. These are the documents she brought last night. Take a look. I scanned them. Legal transfer of business ownership. Jessica Marino named as sole proprietor of all 3 Marino's restaurant locations. Assets valued at approximately $2.3 million. My father's signature at the bottom. Dad, if you signed this, look closer at the signature. I did. Then I saw it. Frank Marino. But the K in Frank was wrong. My father had signed his name thousands of times on checks, invoices, contracts. I'd seen his signature my entire life. The K always had a distinctive backward loop. This signature didn't. It's not your signature. No, it's not. Close, but not quite right. Any forensic expert would spot it immediately. He tapped the paper. These documents are worthless, but your sister doesn't know that. You tricked her. I tested her, he corrected gently. There's a difference. When she came to me last night with these papers, I told her I was tired, that I'd sign them, but I needed her to do something for me first. I asked her to help me fill out some forms for my neurologist. Real forms from my real doctor. He pulled out another document. Medical evaluation forms. Questions about daily activities. Memory, cognitive function. I asked her to check boxes, help me answer questions. And do you know what she did? I waited. She lied. On every single question that asked about my mental state, she checked the worst option. Frequently confused. Often disoriented. Unable to make sound decisions. Unable to manage finances. She falsified a medical document to make me look incompetent. My stomach turned. That's when I knew for certain. She wasn't just being opportunistic. She was actively trying to have me declared mentally unfit so she could take control of everything. Dad, this is illegal. Yes, it's elder financial abuse. It's fraud. It's forgery. He said the words calmly, like he was reading a menu. I called my lawyer this morning, Robert Martinez. He's been handling the business legal work for 15 years. I had him on standby. Standby for what? My father stood, walked to the window. Outside, a black sedan was pulling into the driveway. For this. The doorbell rang. My father went to answer it. I followed my mind, still reeling. 3 people stood on the porch. Robert Martinez, my father's lawyer, who I'd met dozens of times. A woman in a gray suit I didn't recognize. And a police officer. Frank, Robert said formally. This is Detective Sarah Chen from the San Diego County Elder Abuse Unit. And this is Carmen Rodriguez from the District Attorney's Office. Detective Chen stepped forward. Mr. Marino, we received your complaint this morning, along with the evidence your attorney provided. We need to ask you some questions about your interactions with your daughter Jessica. For the next 2 hours, I sat at my father's kitchen table and watched him methodically, calmly explain everything. The timeline of Jessica's visits, the increasingly aggressive legal documents, the medical forms she'd falsified, the signature she'd forged. He provided copies of everything. He'd made copies. Mr. Marino, Detective Chen said carefully, you understand that if we pursue this, your daughter could face serious charges. Elder financial abuse, attempted fraud, forgery, falsification of medical documents. We're looking at potential prison time. I understand. And you want to move forward. My father looked at me. Really looked at me. Then back at the detective. I'm 78 years old. I have Parkinson's disease. I'm not incompetent, but I won't be around forever. I need to know that when I'm gone, my life's work goes to someone who values it for what it is, not what it's worth. I need to know my children understand the difference between love and money. So yes, he said quietly. I want to move forward. Detective Chen nodded. We'll need you to come down to the station to make a formal statement, and we'll need to contact your daughter. She's expecting a meeting with lawyers Friday, my father said, about finalizing the business transfer. Robert Martinez smiled thinly. She'll get her meeting with lawyers, just not the kind she's expecting. They left an hour later with everything they needed. My father and I sat in silence for a long time after they'd gone. Why didn't you tell me? I asked finally. Because I needed to see what you'd do when you thought you'd lost everything. When you got that phone call from Jessica, you could have been angry. You could have called a lawyer yourself, tried to fight her, caused problems, but you didn't. I just asked to see the papers. Exactly. You wanted to understand. You wanted facts. You didn't assume I'd made a mistake or lost my mind. You trusted that there was more to the story. He reached over and gripped my hand. His hand shook slightly, but his grip was strong. That's how I knew. Knew what? That you loved me. Not the restaurants. Not the money. Me. My throat was too tight to speak. The business was always going to be yours, Michael. I updated my actual will 2 years ago. You're the sole beneficiary, but I needed to be sure you were doing this because you loved it, not because you felt entitled to it. I never felt entitled. I know. That's why you passed. 3 days later, Jessica showed up at the restaurant during dinner service. I was in the kitchen when Elena, our hostess, came back and said my sister was demanding to see me. I found her in the lobby dressed in an expensive suit, her face flushed with anger. "What the hell did you do?" she hissed. "I don't know what you're talking about." The police came to my office. The police, Michael. They're accusing me of elder abuse, of fraud. They're saying I forged documents. Did you? Her eyes went wide. Dad was confused. He didn't know what he was signing. I was helping him. He wasn't confused, Jessica. He's never been confused. Early-stage Parkinson's doesn't affect cognitive function. His neurologist confirmed it. You knew that. You looked it up. And you deliberately tried to make him look incompetent anyway. And that's not I was trying to help. He can't manage a business anymore. He needs his children to care about him, not his money. She stared at me. For a moment, I thought I saw something crack in her expression. Something like shame. But it disappeared as quickly as it came. You always thought you were better than me, she said coldly. The devoted son. The one who stayed and worked in the family business. Well, congratulations, Michael. You win. I hope it was worth it. She turned to leave. Jessica. She stopped, but didn't turn around. Dad gave you every chance to do the right thing. He would have forgiven anything if you'd just been honest. If you'd just cared. I did care, she said quietly. I cared enough to make sure he was taken care of. No. You cared enough to make sure you were taken care of. She left without another word. The legal process took months. Jessica was charged with attempted elder financial abuse fraud and falsifying documents. She took a plea deal. 2 years probation community service and mandatory restitution for the legal fees my father had incurred defending himself. Part of her community service. Working in a senior center helping elderly people with their finances. The judge had a sense of irony. But the real consequence came from something else. Word spread in the San Diego real estate community. News traveled fast about someone who'd try to defraud their own elderly father. Her business suffered. Clients left. She ended up taking a job at a small firm in El Cajon, far from the luxury coastal properties she used to handle. My father and I were in the restaurant one evening 6 months after everything happened. It was late after closing. We were sitting in the back booth where he used to plan the menu with my mother before she passed. Do you think she'll ever understand? I asked. He was quiet for a long time. Maybe. People sometimes need to lose everything to understand what actually mattered. Do you forgive her? I forgive her for being greedy. That's human. But I don't forgive her for thinking I was weak, for thinking she could manipulate me because I was old and sick. He took a sip of his wine. There's a difference between forgiving someone and trusting them again. She's still your daughter, and she always will be. But the business will be yours. The house will be yours. Not because you're my favorite, but because you earned it. Because you showed up. Because you cared when there was nothing to gain from caring. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is for you. Open it. Inside was a document, a new title, co-owner of Marino's Restaurant Group, effective immediately. Dad, I can't. You can and you will. I want to spend my last good years working alongside you, not wondering if my legacy is in the right hands. I already know it is. We sat there in the dim light of the restaurant, surrounded by 37 years of memories. The same red vinyl booths my mother had picked out. The same photos on the walls of opening night in 1987. The same copper pots hanging in the kitchen that my father had brought from his mother's house in Bologna. You know what the funny thing is, he said finally. What? Jessica called me 2 weeks ago. First time since everything happened. She asked if I was okay, not if I'd changed my mind about the charges, not if I'd reconsider the will, just if I was okay. What did you say? I said I was fine, and I asked if she was okay. Was she? No. But maybe that's the first step. Admitting you're not okay. Admitting you made a mistake. He smiled sadly. Maybe there's hope for her yet. Would you ever bring her back into the business? He thought about it. If she did the work. Real work. If she proved she understood what this place means. If she showed up not because she wanted something, but because she loved something. He shrugged. Then maybe. But that's years away. If ever. I looked at the document in my hands. Co-owner. Everything I'd worked for my entire adult life finally recognized. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me. You earned every bit of this. He stood his movements a little slower than they used to be, the tremor in his hand a little more pronounced. Now, let's go home. I'm tired. As we locked up the restaurant, I thought about Jessica's phone call to me that morning 3 months ago. The coldness in her voice, the certainty. You get nothing. But she was wrong. I got everything that mattered. I got my father's respect. I got his trust. I got the knowledge that I'd done the right thing, even when it would have been easier to look away. I got to work alongside him for whatever time we had left. I got 37 years of memories in this restaurant, and hopefully many more to come. I got the truth about who I was. Not the son who stayed because he had to, but the son who stayed because he wanted to. And Jessica, she got exactly what she'd always wanted, just not in the way she expected. She got a lesson about value, about the difference between price and worth, about what happens when you love things more than people. Sometimes the best inheritance isn't money, it's character, and you can't fake that no matter how many documents you sign. My father locked the door behind us. The neon Marino's sign flickered above us, the same one that had been there since 1987. Red cursive letters against the dark San Diego sky. You know, he said as we walked to our cars, I'm proud of you, Michael. Not because you got the business, but because you would have kept showing up even if you hadn't. That's what love looks like. Showing up when there's nothing to gain but someone else's well-being. He paused. Your mother would have been proud of you too. I watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing down the street. And I thought about all the Tuesday and Thursday dinners, all the doctor's appointments, all the quiet mornings drinking coffee in his kitchen, all the moments that Jessica had missed because she was too busy calculating what she might gain. She'd asked me once years ago why I never moved away, why I never pursued something bigger, something more prestigious than managing the family restaurant. I hadn't had a good answer then, but I did now, because this was my life. These red vinyl booths, these copper pots, these recipes my grandmother brought from Italy, this man who built something from nothing and taught me that how you build matters more than what you build. Jessica wanted to inherit a business, but I'd already inherited something better. I'd inherited the knowledge that when everything was on the line, I chose right. I chose love over money, presence over profit, truth over convenience, and that inheritance. Nobody could ever take that away. I drove home that night past the other two Marino's locations, one in Little Italy, one in La Jolla. 3 restaurants in one of the most competitive food cities in America, all because my father believed in doing things right, treating people well, and showing up every single day. My phone buzzed, a text from my father. Just 3 words. "Love you, son." I smiled and typed back, "Love you too, Dad." And that, more than any document or signature or legal transfer, was worth everything.